Do we have places? Okay. Do you need me to page them? Okay, thank you. All right, and checking in with the conductor. You all set? Have a good show, Maestra. Any places? All right. Let's do this. Have a good show, everyone. Stand by house to half and house out. House to half. Go. Lights 2 and house out. Go.
The Ghost Light, a single bulb left center stage after each performance, has traditionally served as a supernatural offering to those who came before us and those we have lost, to ensure that the theater, their theater, never goes dark.
That the magic of theater continues. Theaters from Broadway to the West End, Los Angeles to Savannah may be closed for now, but their ghost lights remain lit.
Our spirits remain hungry, our responsibilities clear. We look at this as an opportunity, a chance to build on the work we've done.
A chance to embrace our theatrical roots and create new adventures.
What we do now paves the way for the years to come, for the Savannah rep of the future.
We promise that the ghost light will burn brightly until it is safe to begin again.
It is our responsibility to carry on the traditions that precede us. We are Savannah Rep.
A home for great stories and great theater. The hands of the clock will move again, and this is not the end of the story.
It's a new beginning.
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 And we'll see you soon.
Hello friends, it's Friday at 5 p.m. Welcome to the third episode of OnStageOff. Wow, I don't know why it didn't occur to me in either of the previous episodes, especially since I was using that Ghostlight video as the pre-roll, that I'm wearing the same shirt all the time. You all now know my secret. I have one really nice shirt for Zooms, and while it gets washed, it gets worn a lot. My friends, welcome to the third episode. We had a great episode last week, and looking forward to continuing the trend. Let's just be honest. The shirt really never changes. The hairstyle only happens now Fridays at 5. 8-hour Zoom days. Any other day of the week, baseball cap or fedora if we're feeling fancy. Any other day of the week that for a socially distanced masked grocery buying trip, the hat. But Fridays at 5. I get out the brush, which screams that it is being ignored in the closet, and do the hair because my guests are important to me, and I want to treat them as such. It's a very weird era, of course, but I'm happy that you're here for it. This is also a momentous OnStageOff episode because it's the last one before this portion of the Ghostlight campaign ends for Savannah Repertory Theater. I believe we had a donation come in just before the show started, and a very large one. Thank you to who it was. I haven't seen the name yet, which brings us just around the 12,000 and counting mark. The reason we had set 15,000 as our goal for this round of the Ghostlight campaign, and specifically the Pave the Way portion, is because $15,000 is the average of the commitment we have made to pay our artists, our actors, our directors, our designers, our technicians for every production. And while ticket sales can cover a lot of the overhead and a lot of the rest of the production expenses, it's that portion of money which we always look to the community and to our patrons and our friends to help with. Even more necessary as still not sure what date we'll be back in the theater, but very much looking forward to it. If you would like to give before September 1st and get a paving stone, you can visit savannahrep.org/ghostlight. Well, it's Friday at 5. I promised there would be no heavy topics, no recap of the week on this show. This show is just for exquisite guests who have lived interesting lives and who I long to talk to in a format like this. But before this moment, never had such a format to do. My first guest is an actor, a director, a raconteur, a producer, one of the kindest souls to ever walk the earth. Please welcome the exquisite JinHi Soucy Rand to the show. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. JinHi, I have to say right off the bat, your backdrop is exquisite.
Oh, thank you. My kitchen.
It's it's like it's got that great like lines inside of lines for the frame, and I don't know if you spent a lot of time getting it set up, but it really looks like it did. So thanks very much.
Oh, well, this is just what it is.
I think that is the motto of 2020. This is just what it is.
But this lipstick, Fridays at 5.
This hair. That lipstick.
Exactly.
I love it. Hi, how are you?
Wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm good. For a lot of people watching the show right now, you are a very known quantity in Savannah and surroundings. People have celebrated your work and celebrated with you as you have contributed to their work for a long time. I kind of wanted to start with a question that maybe a lot of people don't know if they've known you at different parts of your life. And also, for those watching, remember, if you'd like to ask a question in either Facebook or YouTube, you can. And if we have time, I will bring them up and inquire of our guests. So the question for you, JinHi, is when did your personal love of theater kick in? What was the moment that it just kind of ran away with your heart?
I think as far back as I can remember, theater was a part of my life even before I knew what theater was. Just from the storytelling and around. I grew up in. My brother and I grew up in a lot of different countries, and one of the things that was common throughout each country was the storytelling. And I think probably the first play, although I didn't know it was a play that was associated with the movie, was Jesus Christ Superstar. I was 5 years old, and that was kind of what got me started. I started by directing productions of that at 5 years old on the playgrounds in Hamburg, Germany.
That's obviously that's a show that's close to my heart as well.
I know.
I feel like that's a show that has launched a lot of people's sort of lifelong passions.
I agree. I've met a few diehard beautiful people who that was the beginning of their interest in theater and musical theater, and I'm so grateful to that show for getting so many musicians and singers and actors to share their talents with and their stories with the world.
And it's okay if there's not an easy answer to this question, but do you remember, because I do, fair play, do you remember what it was about sort of the idea of directing that show or being in that show? Do you remember what it was that just kind of crossed over the barrier and made you say, oh, this is something I really want to do?
I think I didn't decide that until I was in college, because I had cancer in high school and wasn't really doing much theater. I pushed Christopher into theater. My little brother, I pushed him to go audition for shows because that's what I wanted to do. But I couldn't really see a place for me in the condition that I was in the the body that I am in, being an amputee, and at that time. But then when I went to college, I think that's when life just kind of like seizes you, and you start, and you think you have to make some choices about your, what you're going to do with your life, and you can go the route of what makes sense, mm-hmm. or you can go the route of follow your passions, and that was kind of where I went. So it was college when I started thinking seriously about making a career in theater in some way, either as an actor or director or a producer. I was just going. I wanted to tell the stories.
And I'm going to go forward to go back. I'm going to show this picture really quickly that I've always loved. That is by Megan Jones.
Yes.
Many time recipient of best ofs for Savannah, for good reason. This is you in front of the marquee that went through a lot by wheeling out and back in front of Muse Arts Warehouse for many years.
Yes.
So to go forward, to go back, since obviously you and I have a lot of passion, a lot of history, and a lot of love wrapped up in that one very particular space. So to go back, I think it's great that you mentioned college, because I was actually going to go to the next question by saying it was in college. I had just started SCAD, and Barbara Williams came to the class and said, "We've had a request from Bob Patterson, who, for those that may not know, recently passed, and very, very dear heart, dear friend, said he needs someone like immediately to be in this production of Jungle Book. Who wants to do it?" And I remember thinking, I had just come out of children's, almost 7 years of very high level children's theater in Charlotte, and I remember thinking that college was scary and full of trepidation, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to be. And I kind of clung to the idea of doing this show like a life raft. I remember thinking, I need to speak up first, or someone's going to take this from me, and I won't get to do it. And in their defense, like everyone else in my class was kind of like, they were very focused, and they're like, I don't have time, and it would be a lot of rehearsals, and and I'm like, oh, me. And so I remember it. That all to say, we met because I said me, and that's sort of that, like, the choices that you make really lead you in such interesting directions. Obviously, I think we loved each other from the outset, because I sensed a kindred spirit, even though I don't think either of us had even kind of fully approached our concept of providing arts advocacy and opportunities for other at that point. And then obviously we've gone in such interesting directions with that over the years.
I agree. It was a very fortunate time in my life anyway, and am very excited that you did come into doing theater within the community and within this community, and help me. I think
you're doing great. Well, I have a specific
what we
question.
were able to accomplish over the years here, and the people that we've gotten to meet, and the opportunities that we've been able to provide, and get through the people that we've met here in Savannah.
And I think you and Mark and I and a number of other people to a smaller degree, but I think probably the three of us have a very clear understanding of a very specific type of arts producer sort of hat to wear, which is this sort of, the venue is open when the venue opens when I unlock the door. And
right.
You and I have never really talked about this, so I'm kind of curious what it felt like for the many years of Muse to know that you were unlocking the door to dozens of different companies, and what did that feel like? That sort of was there Was there the same feeling night to night, knowing that you were unlocking the door and this different audience was going to come in and this different show was going to be there or a film was going to be screened? Did you always have the same feeling, or did the feeling evolve based on who you were hosting and who you were renting to?
I would say that for the most part, the people that we were hosting in the venue brought to it so much that that opening the door to them was a complete delight each and every time, and there was something new each and every time, and the different audiences that the different groups brought in also added to the atmosphere of the space and how I felt being able to manage that space for as long as I was able to.
And our story kind of parallels in that way too, that it's kind of that you don't know, it's like you don't realize the depth of what a situation was until you have the hindsight or you have a removed perspective on it. Like, I don't think I realized when we were doing Bob's Jungle Book, and then when I designed lights for Number the Stars, which you were in, and we just kind of it kind of snowballed from there, for me at least. But the idea that we were doing theater that was, subsidized, that was fully subsidized by the city, and sort of the fact that you opened the door to Muse at exactly the perfect moment. Do you feel like you closed a chapter with Muse that is allowing people to have gotten on their feet enough to have opened multiple venues and be producing, or do you think we need another Muse that if the space were available and if there was a team to run it? Do you kind of feel where? Yeah, that's my question.
Yes, I think there is always a need for a space that is made available to starting and rising artists and arts organizations. Yes, I think that where Muse ended, I was very happy and proud that most of the organizations and most of the artists found other venues since then, and I'm able to visit them now in different venues, because it wasn't just a theater space. It was a dance space, and it was a space for spoken word and musicians, and so getting to see them in other spaces, that has been wonderful. However, I do think that there is a need for that space, and I very much think that Savannah Rep is filling that need, and I'm very excited about what they've been doing and what they are going to do.
I promise I wasn't a leading question,
and what they're
but
providing.
I appreciate it.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because it does all come around. It comes around again.
And it's easy to have, because I've known the city for so long, it's so easy to step in and say, oh yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. But credit where credit is due. I'm so new to the operation, so new to the ballpark, and it really is. It's Jen and Erik and Ken and Nick and Sandra and John and Tanya. Like, it's kind of exceptional. It makes me really happy that I had just started having this inkling maybe about 2 years ago. I was like, I want to be back in Savannah as much as possible, and I was down building the Prohibition Museum and kind of feeling like that was like satisfying the itch a little bit. But every time like you and I would try to get a meal, or people would ask me to like do theater things, I was always just too busy to do them. So it was just amazing that Jen and Erik and team had built something that felt so natural and felt like such a nice extension of the Muse mission, even though they really weren't connected with that era and had missed that era entirely. Now, I know you travel a lot, and I know when you're up in the city, when you're up visiting me and the New York environs, I know you love to get upstate a little bit. Is there, just tell our viewers where somewhere is in the United States that feels reinvigorating, calming, a place that you know you can always go and get sort of what your heart needs. Obviously Savannah, but when you're not there.
I was going to say, I don't know if you're after Savannah, but because Savannah definitely is one, and for me, New York is another. The city is another place where I personally feel in my zone and in my energy and in my Zen place.
Which I agree with. I feel good because I get to see you. I feel like we've grifted the Magi a couple of times where you've been up and I've been down, and it's kind of this like, where?
Right.
But I think that's one thing. That's a good thing
High
about
five
loving.
in the sky.
That's right, because the jet blues are usually passing planes in the night. I want to show one other picture because this is a picture that has stuck with me over the years. It's by our friend Karla, who is an exceptional photographer and has made quite a career for themselves. This is you as a phoenix from an entire, I believe it was an entire gallery commission of hers.
It was a series.
And it was
right.
It hung at Muse for a while, just before I think I left for New York. Do you remember that shoot? And if so, I've always been just kind of curious about what your conversation was with Carly and how you came to sort of the costuming and the pose, because I think it's such an iconic picture. And you rising is such a beautiful image. How did you get to that with her?
It absolutely was Carly. She made the beak. She and not just mine. Several, at least 15, and she made the costume, and she said that it was how she saw me, and as a bird, and it was the beginning of Muse. It was right when we were starting, and it was her first exhibit outside of college, and it was a success. And she's gone on to shoot so many beautiful women and so many different beautiful places all over the world.
And that image, I think, has always been very close to her heart. I've seen it displayed. I mean, it's something that pops up a lot of times when I'm searching for like news about you and news about your brother and news about news. And I feel like one of the first times that you and I talked back in 2002, 2003, one of the first times we talked, it was at City Lights on Broughton Street. And I remember to this day, you talked to me about the zones in which the zones that are created in which we can play, the safe zones that are created. Obviously, once you had a moment to do that with Muse, you created, I think, one of the most significant ones I've ever experienced. But going all the way back to when we met at City Lights, you as a phoenix, I think, is such a beautiful image that represents so much of what Savannah does. Is that Savannah, it ebbs and it flows and it grows and it contracts. And
yes.
I have been very grateful, and I know a lot of Savannians are very grateful that in all of its expansions, one of the key themes has been you and your brother. And it's just so significant to me personally. Do you have a dream of a show you'd like to direct in the next couple of years that you either have already done and would want to take another stab at, or something that you haven't had a chance at yet? Something that's itching on you, or are you super content with what you've been able to do in the last couple of years?
I'm not sure. I haven't thought about it lately. Not having the means to produce. There are productions out there. There are definitely some musicals, and I've always loved the Elephant Man, and I would love to wrap my hands around that, wrap my mind around that.
And now
So-
when we figure out when, where, and under which company, once we figure that out, now it will have always been said here first on this show. that you were
Yes,
gonna
I
do it.
know.
So
And
good.
and Karla was on last week, and the last production of it I saw was hers, and it was beautiful. And it had been a favorite of mine since I was a child, and I'm glad I got to see Karla's, and I would love a chance at doing that too.
Great. I'm going to edit that. I'm going to edit that soundbite out when you
That's
go
cool.
into Tech Week on it and put it up on the Facebook. See, we told you it was going to happen. JinHi, it is. When I thought about doing this show, you were the person I wanted to talk to when I put it sort of in my peripheral. So thanks for being here to talk to me today.
Thank you so much, Ryan. It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you. As you know, I'm waiting. As soon as the numbers are in the right place, I'm going to be there, and we're going to get a meal and share.
Great.
some-
I'll be in New York.
Fantastic. All right, get ready for the high five. Socially distanced high five. Much love to you. Please thank my guest, everybody, JinHi Soucy Rand. I'm trying to get better about pulling guests in and out. It's something that still is just a very strange science. Eric Bishop reminds me that it was the James family, Lisa, Lynn, Katie, and Nan, who made the donation just before the show started. Thank you all. It made me do a little happy dance, which we aren't going to broadcast. We're going to show an ad now for a company that does not sponsor us, and when we return, we will have the amazing Nygel D. Robinson.
This is Princess Adora, sister of He-Man, and her gentle horse. Each sold separately, you can pretend.
She's lovely as a flower, but she has a secret power. The magic sword in one stroke, and she's got the strength of a tower. She wrote Princess of Power. The fate of the world's in the hands of one beautiful girl. Princess of Power.
She-Ra doll Princess of Power comes with everything you see here. Swiftwind horse sold separately, new from Mattel.
I don't know, but that rhyme scheme is fire. Those lyrics are fire. That song works. I Want One is probably on a website somewhere. I was coming back. I was going to say Chris Bass is the one that got me started on StreamYard, and I don't know that he knows what he created. He's been doing an incredible show since quarantine started, having guests on over at Savannah Performance Project, and he kind of worked out the bugs so that I could kind of dig into the heavier duty StreamYard stuff, and as a result you get those ads, and Chris Bass says thanks. I don't know if he's sincere with that or not, that I've brought you the 80s ads, but you're welcome. Chris, you're always welcome. My next guest is an actor, musician, a writer, composer, all around fabulous person. Please welcome to the show, Nygel D. Robinson. Hey!
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm good, my friend. How are you?
I'm well. I just have to tell you that She-Ra, it's on Amazon. If you go, it's just right there, and I might have to order one. That was fantastic. I felt
Yeah, it's got that delayed payoff rhyme where it's like it rhymes power with hour, and then there's a hold, and then you rhymes with tower. It's beautiful.
I leave it to you to discover the beautiful rhyme schemes in it. I just want the doll. I want to play with the toy, but now I got to go back and listen to it so I can appreciate it like you did.
Nygel, let's talk about what's going on.
Let's talk about it.
We got up. It's one of those things. If I'd known that this was going to happen this year, if I'd known 2020 was going to be this, I would have put even more stock in the show that we last did. We put up the first ever completely actor muso Godspell last summer.
Yes.
In Vermont, which thankfully is a state that has been pretty calm throughout this whole crazy era. You played Jesus. You were crucified at a keyboard. You picked up the acoustic guitar. You did things. Let's hit the ground running. When you said when you were cast as Jesus, what was your initial instinct of sort of doing the Godspell, and what was your emotional journey by the end of it? Like what did that show do to you?
When I talked to Chris about it, I was in disbelief. Because he asked me to be a part of it, and I was like, Jesus, are you kidding me? And then I had to get over that disbelief and just accept that this is what it is, and you get to do this incredible show in this incredible way, like in a way that's so relatable to me, because I've been playing instruments forever. But I was doing a show at a time, and I taught him about it. But after I got done with all of that, I just started thinking about, like, what does what does it mean to be Black Jesus in an actor musician Godspell? And the closer I got to it, the more freaked out I started getting, because I was like, I need to be able to play all these instruments. I don't know what they're going to tell me to do. So besides preparing for it, like musically, just I happen to be a Christian, and I've always known the story of Jesus, and I admire Jesus for a lot of ways, because there's a humanity in Jesus that I really appreciate, and I think that shows like Godspell and like Jesus Christ Superstar shows like that they showcase the human side of Jesus as well as the divinity, and I mean a remarkable human nonetheless. But I just what most I enjoyed about it was being able to communicate with my friends, which they were, my castmates, with you guys on stage, and say these powerful words and stop people from reacting in ways that won't help anybody. Like it felt like I was a teacher, and I had 2 hours a night for 2 weeks to just try and make people better people, while being able to play drum solos and the acoustic guitar, you're crucified, playing an organ patch on the keyboard. So I think my favorite part of it was just being able to communicate with people and communicate like love and acceptance and being slow to anger, all those things that we tend to have a hard time doing as humans, and I have a hard time in particular. But it's just good because it teaches you something while you're doing it. Like as you minister to other people, you're ministering to yourself. So that I will say that's what I got most out of Godspell.
You kind of dropped a fun point of reference in there for people that don't do actor musician shows or don't have any, that have maybe seen them but don't have any history rehearsing and performing them. You have to kind of meet in the middle. There's the perfect world of everyone has the right instrument at the right time for the staging and the choreography. And then there's sort of this reality that there's always less drummers in the cast than there are guitarists and pianists. So there's also this like we had Jesus drumming a lot more than we maybe would have if it had gone the other way. But it's that kind of thing. It's like there were three, and by the end of it, Katrine was playing really confident drums as well. So there were about 4 drummers at the end. So it was kind of this like, everyone was on a guitar at some point, everyone was on a piano, we had our horns and then the 3 of us were kind of taking care of those drums the whole show.
Right.
But what's amazing is like there are no mistakes in actor musicianship. Like when you look at the way that the orchestration turned out, it ended up being perfect. In the moments that you were on drums and were separated from the rest of the group, it created these really sort of emotional communications. And I think people loved seeing Jesus drumming. I think there was something about that I mean, let alone Black Jesus. I think it was just the idea that this man could preach like this and then could sit down and just kill a fill. So then I have a question. When you create your own work, and if this show had a writing staff, I would have checked this question as background before I asked it on the show. Is it okay if I talk about what you're doing with Brian right now, or is it on?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You create your own actor musician work. You're working on a show right now. I'd love for you to talk to the audience a little bit about when you do that. My sort of preface question is, do you control the orchestration? Do you make it work for your hands, your musician brain, and your collaborators? Or do you kind of create it with the same sort of devil-may care that we created the Godspell with?
Well, we're Brian Quijada, my writing partner, and I we met in February of 2020, and after we taught initially, and like we dug each other's style and everything, and then he was like, "Dude, I got this idea for the Underground Railroad that went south down to Mexico," and he happens to be of Hispanic descent, I'm of Black descent, so we can both play those people. He can be I can be the slave on the road to Mexico, and then he saves me. I run into a problem. I have a lot of isms and I have a lot of things that I like to do personally as a musician, and those things kind of creep into everything I do. So I would say that this show is very specific to us and very specific to Brian because it's live looping. So as of right now, we're releasing a track a month through New York Stage and Film, but and we can do everything in house and on a computer. But the spectacle of it will be that we're like sitting there, we play a loop, let it run for like a few bars, and then add something in and add something in. But so that's Brian's wheelhouse. And then I think we meet in the middle really well, and we're creating something that's very specific to us. So there's a lot of, I mean, we've been we've been writing like this, like on Zoom and FaceTime and stuff, which is bizarre, but that is, we're trying to do the best with, you know, what we're given. I'm not in New York right at the moment, and you know, and we're trying to be safe and everything, but I would say that we're writing it to our strengths, and then hopefully our hope is that it'll drag out the people who have been waiting for someone to do something like this so that they can shine. I talked to him a lot about this. He's probably sick of me saying it, but I think Lin-Manuel Miranda did exactly that. He's a skinny little guy who, you know, just not your typical leading man, not the strongest singer on earth, but very charismatic, very energetic, very captivating, and just so happens to be from New York and grew up in the era of like Big Pun and all these rappers. So when he came out and he made In the Heights, all these other guys who were like, oh my God, I've never been represented before, and now I can. So I think that if this show, well, I want to speak positively, when the show does something and can be produced, people will come out of the woodworks who do exactly what we do. You know, so you know, there's the argument like, should we write something that's more general, that's more, you know, that can apply to a lot of people, or should we just write something that's for us? I think if we write something for us, there are a lot more people just like you than you even know. So I think that'll, and then, you know, people are different, so they'll come out and add their own spin to it or whatever. But I all that to say, I'm pretty specific to how I am as a musician. And I think Brian is pretty specific to how he is as a musician. And then, you know, in the future, because I don't foresee us stopping writing together after this. So like, who's to say that we can't, you know, make something that's a little more applicable, like across the board. But as of right now, this show is very specific to he and I.
Great, and it's called, working title is Mexodus.
Mexodus, yes.
Yes, and credit where credit is due. New York Stage and Film has continued their commitment to you, even as obviously the world entered this very strange era. What sort of dealing with them on an administrative level? What are you finding as sort of your encounter working with a producing organization in a difficult time? Like, if you're not in New York and you can't shake hands and you can't go to Ripley Greer and work this thing out, like what's that process been working with them as a producer?
So they are, and I don't have much to compare to, because this is my first time working with an entity like this, but they're very hands off in the fact that they're not telling us what to do. They're not saying, well, it should be this way, it should be that. They're letting us pretty much do what we do, and we make something and then we talk about it. And Liz, they're brilliant. They are so brilliant, because I mean, we can go in with an idea. We go in with a recording and like, hey, you want to listen to this? And the next thing I know, she says 5 things and we have to go right back and start all over again, because she's just so smart. And she gave us like 10 ideas that we never would have thought of if we didn't go through them. So they're giving us, you know, they're giving us resources. They're giving us their professional input, but then they're not handsy. Like they're not taking control of anything. Like, this is our project, and they're I mean, they made it clear that we're just helping you. So I think we're fortunate. You know, it's just way different than anything that I would think, because I would think that if someone's like, well, I'm going to pay for it, I'm going to do all this stuff, so you're going to have to do what I say. It's nothing like that. They just, you know, they listen, they like it, they respect us as artists, and we respect them as artists. And they just give us their, you know, opinions. Like, man, what if you rapped in Spanish here, or what if you didn't go here and it went there, or whatever. And we listen, and it's brilliant. So we go apply it. But it's a special case working with New York Stage and Film, and I don't know if I'll ever be this lucky again. I hope so, because I hope to keep working with them. But like to work with people who are just like, this is your thing. We respect you. We'll help you. We'll do whatever we can, and you know, keep our hands out of it. But we want to help you. So they're just out here to help. So in this day and age, in this time, it's really nice to be working with an organization that's just like, no, whatever you need, we'll just help you do it, because they can, and they want to produce diverse and interesting work that'll challenge people. So kudos to New York Stage and Film. Kudos
to them. I've loved what I've heard of the show so far. I'm excited about the way that y'all are rolling it out. So we get messages from it once a month to get, you know, to keep reminding us how much we're looking forward to it. Another thing I would have checked with my writing staff, if I had a writing staff, is and it's fine if you don't, do you have something musical you want to show us in the episode today, or I see the guitars in the case. I didn't know if you had an instrument nearby and you were going to play something. If you're not, ha! Are you ready to roll right into it, or do I need to like cut away, or?
I can go right into something.
All right. Well, then what I'll do is I'll do this. I'm gonna introduce you as a musician now because we've seen you as the actor. All right. Meanwhile, Chris Bass says, thanks for the shout out. Very sincere. Chris Bass, I got you covered and I appreciate you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the screen the musicianary talents. That's a word I should never say again. Of Nygel D. Robinson.
So this is a song that a good friend of mine named Barry Anderson wrote. And he wanted me to sing it, and I was in disbelief, much like when Chris talked to me about Godspell. It's a song called One More Chance, and when I heard it, I was like, I love this. And then he was like, well, we're going to record it and make a video, and it's like my first single. So, you know, I owe him everything. I sing it everywhere because I think it's a brilliant song, and I'm so happy that he thought of me to do it. So this is a song called One More Chance. It's on Spotify and Apple Music and all those streaming platforms. So if you like it, go check it out. But here's a song. I see lovers walking down the street, and I get envious because I'm way romantic but incomplete without the two of us. But I won't blame you for singing a brand new song. I like na 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 na. 'Cause baby, I was wrong. Give me one more chance to make me worth your while. Give me one more chance to prove to you that love is still my style. No one but you can make me dance like na 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 na. And give me one more chance. Give me one more chance. I was too caught up for champagne dreams to know just what I had. Now the heavenly maze ripped at the seams, and it hurts so bad. But I won't blame you for singing a brand new song like na 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 na. 'Cause maybe I was wrong. Give me one more chance to make me worth your while. Give me one more chance to prove to you that love is still my style. No one but you can make me this. I'm like na 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 na. Let me tell you, my biggest mistake was making your heart ache. I love you for all of my days. Let me count the ways. Give me one more chance to make me worth your while. Give me one more chance to prove to you that love is still my style. No one but you can make me dance. I'm like na 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 na. Na 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 na. Do 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 na 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 na. Na 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 na. Would do na 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 na. Just give me one more chance.
Ladies and gentlemen, Nygel D. Robinson. I never know if he's got the keyboard in front of him or not. So when his hands came down and they made keyboard sounds, that literally just that tickled me. It was perfect. We appreciate Nygel. I'm so excited to see the work that he's doing with Brian Quijada. Super looking forward to the moment that I get some of that genius down at Savannah Repertory. We'll have that conversation as soon as that work is ready to go. We'll be right back after this message from not our sponsors with Michael Cerveris.
Don't pout, check it out. Zach's gonna show you what work's about.
It's the blob, it's the blob.
I am the future blob.
Without a job,
I am the future blob.
what can I do?
No need to panic, no need to get scared. You can make the future by being prepared. Ask what do I like to do? What jobs are suited to me?
I like to skate. I like to go bowling. But my favorite hobby is cutting and sewing.
You can get going, plan a business sewing. It's your job, your future job. There are many jobs you can train for. Seamstress tailor, costume designer, alterations, pattern maker.
I am the blob, the future blob.
It's no blob when you plan for a job. Don't be afraid, make a career and get paid. Do your job, plan for a future job, and you won't Soucy, the mean of future blob.
Oh, the 80s. Nygel, I see you're still in the green room, so I want to show you that we had love from Skip Chorus for that song. We had love from Erik Bishop. And Chris Bass, I'm assuming at Savannah Performance Project, said runs off the charts. For a second, I thought he meant that like the single was going to just climb the charts so fast it was going to fall off. But I think he means that your vocal runs are off the charts. I'm not ever sure what he means, but he also wants us to make a career and get paid. So Nygel, thanks again for singing. My next guest is a 2-time Tony Award winner for Assassins and Fun Home. He's also just a really cool guy, and he's here to hang out. Please welcome to the show, Michael Cerveris. Hey, Michael.
Hey there. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right.
We were talking in the chat during Nygel's song about the fact that your better half has been coming in and out of frame and may yet again.
She was really digging Nygel's song too. Evie, come here, come say hi. Come here. Of course, now she won't.
Of course, right? Yeah. She's on her equity. Oh, the equity 10 is over. Oh. She's just, man, it's been a hot second since I've seen her. Hi. I have found that talking to dogs through screens has been, because I have so many dogs I can't see right now in person, and talking to them through screens is always a little strange.
Yeah.
I will say our viewership just went through the roof as soon as she came on screen. So.
It's because of Evangeline. Michael,
how's everything? How's everything with you?
All things considered, pretty good. I spent a long time in New York City, and then I escaped at a certain point up to the mountains in northern Appalachia, which was a good thing for a while. And then I was back in the city for a while. And now I'm in Pittsburgh at my dad's place, spending some time with him.
Awesome. It's so I wanted to kind of jump around a little bit and ask a couple of just random questions I've always been curious about, if that's all right.
Sure.
And as always, if people leave comments in the Facebook thread with questions, and if they're appropriate questions, I will ask them. Or if you just want to comment, best Sweeney Todd, that is also completely acceptable. Or if you want to comment, puppy, these are all acceptable things to do.
Absolutely.
I want to show a picture really quick, which you put it on your Instagram a couple weeks ago, so I feel like it's been approved for showing. It's this picture here, which I'm obsessed with because it is you as Hedwig and three members, or I guess the three members at that time of Stone Temple Pilots. Right. That picture kind of formed a connection in my brain that I didn't even realize existed, which was that era of STP just climbing up the charts. And Hedwig had just at that time, I think, moved to California. Am I tracking that right?
Yeah. I had done it. I took over for John Cameron Mitchell in New York and did it there for, I think, like 9 months or so. And then that was part of the sort of promotional push for the LA production when we were doing it out there.
Yeah. Did you find since you were the first person to take the role over fully besides Understudies and Swings, you were the first Hedwig after he retired it for a while. Was there that feel of what was the level of making it your own versus following the very specific pattern that was selling tickets and obviously had changed the idiom of rock theater?
Well, John didn't actually have an understudy in the beginning either, so they just did 6 shows a week, and so nobody really quite knew whether it worked for anybody but John to do it, and I wasn't certain either, but John was tired. Initially, I came in to just do it for a month. John was exhausted and didn't want to stop the show altogether, but felt like he needed to take a break. And he and I had known each other for a long time. We used to sort of meet in audition rooms, and he would hand me a flyer for this drag cabaret act thing that he was doing that people didn't really know about yet, and I would hand him flyers for whatever band I was in at the time, and so when he wanted to take a break, he just called me and asked if I would be interested in taking over. And I had seen the show at that point like 4 times, I think, because I loved it so much. But I certainly never thought of anybody but John doing it. I think whoever you see for the first time as Hedwig, you kind of think, well, that's the only Hedwig there can be. And I think it was a relief to everybody. It certainly was a relief to me, but I think it was a real relief to John and Peter Askin, the director, and Stephen Trask, to discover that they had really created the bones of such a terrific play. And you could just take that script, and if you do the script, you will have a good show. You know, all of the ad libs and the extra embellishments are great, and you have to balance that with, you know, what's actually on the page. But so much is there on the page, as with any great play. So my focus in doing this was not that different to doing, you know, Hamlet or anything else that has been done a number of times by wonderful, brilliant people, better than you ever think that you are. And the only way to do that is to kind of go back to the script and mine what's there. And if you do that sincerely as yourself, it will just be different because you're different. I mean, I used to joke that John seemed huge when he was on stage in Hedwig, but he's such a slight guy, and you know, like shops in the boys department at JCPenney. Like, he's just a small framed guy. And so just standing next to him in real life, I seem twice his size, and I thought his Hedwig seemed huge. So mine must have been like Headzilla, because I just must have been twice as big. But it is, I mean, it's such a fantastic character and such a fantastic show because it meets you where you are. And the more of you that you bring to it, the more sincerely your own it will be. I had lots of friends come and say, I couldn't find you anywhere in it. And I always thought that's so weird, because I feel there's more of me in this than like most anything else I'd done.
I missed that. I think my first experience with it was regionally, and I've seen it. Obviously it's licensed all over the place.
Right.
And then, interestingly, sort of the you never forget your first is true. We have a performer in Savannah that did it for many years who became very iconic. And then when I saw the revival, I had purposely waited until I knew John was going to come in at some point. And I knew that the offer was going to be good enough at some point. So that was actually the first time that I'd seen it in New York. And obviously, so I kind of saw it in the reverse order that I think a lot of people have seen it. And,
right.
And it was really extraordinary to see him in that after all those years. But what I loved about that picture was you with Stone Temple Pilots, which was the band I wanted to be in during that entire period. And it was something that kind of has always baffled me, is this idea that when I was in my teens and like losing my mind over the sort of post-grunge feel and like the Seattle bands, this idea that they were like these wise gurus who had 5-6 decades of experience, like that they knew everything. And it's interesting, one of the things I found as I get older as a musician is the fact that they were never that much older to begin with.
No.
But it always feels like, even though you stay the same degree of age away from your idols in that way, it feels like the amount that it starts compressing, and you realize that they're as confused as you were. And it's
that's the key to so much, I think, because I've had exactly that same experience. My heroes in bands and as actors, growing up, often were people that I thought of as so much more experienced and so much more clued in than I ever hoped I would be. And then years later discovering, they were only like a handful of years older. And I had a teacher, he was a TA who, well, actually he taught in my high school theater class. He was like the teacher's assistant. And later I realized, and I assumed at the time, that he had the keys to acting and the clues to, unlock all of the art forms that I would never, ever get. And then I realized some years later, when I realized, I'm the same age that guy was when he was teaching me, and I, revered him. And at that point, I had had more professional experience than he had had when he was teaching us, and I knew I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I was still like trying to figure it out. And it was a really pivotal day because I realized, oh, nobody really knows, and everybody's just trying desperately to, conceal the fact that they don't know what they're doing. And I really stopped. Well, it was the beginning of me letting go of the idea that there was going to be an answer, and that that there was a key that I just wasn't going to get. And once I stopped looking for that it's still hard for me to do that in music. I think I still kind of think everybody else is just cooler and more clued in than me. But with theater, and I finally at a certain point stopped diminishing my own perceptions and started feeling like, well, I mean, I don't have the answers, but nobody else does, and I can learn from the people who know more than I do all the time. But I'm going to stop, denigrating everything that I think, and I'm going to have some respect for my own observations and perceptions.
And I think, yeah, and like STP's, like their like Core, the debut album, which is just such a monolith of rock. It's like that idea that I think the moment that I realized that they had made that album, they had made that piece of genius under this confusion and under this amount of stress and not knowing who they were. It makes it easier to make all of your art. I think, as you're saying, once you know that there's not a magic moment that you're waiting for.
And they were such cool guys too. I mean, they were just the nicest, most genuine three people to hang out with, and that's another thing too, because I so often was feeling like I wanted to prove myself to anybody in the real rock world that I would come into contact with through Hedwig, or dating back to Tommy as well. And what I discovered most of the time, rock journalists like to have this sort of purity, and if you're a grunge band, or if you're a downtown New York band, you have to live only that, and if you show any signs of having been an actor, you're just immediately suspect, and you're thrown in the pile with Keanu Reeves, and like that's it. And what I discovered was so many people that I met and became friends with in the rock world, like often loved theater, had done theater when they were kids, or loved doing it, or always sort of wanted to be an actor, and they didn't see the barriers between things. They also often don't observe the boundaries between genres. There are lots of bands that you would be amazed that they actually listen to other bands that they listen to, but musicians, and I guess probably real artists, aren't as interested in those boxes and those barriers. It's really, it's the marketing people and the journalists and those people, and I still struggle with it to this day, but it's always been a joy when I've met guys like the Stone Temple Pilots guys, who are just like, no, this is the coolest thing we've done in ages, man. Thanks so much.
Now, you're intimately involved with two canons that I know a lot of people really, really love, especially as they've sort of emerged into populist entertainment, which are the rock musical and the actor-musician show. Because I mean, obviously,
as you were just talking about.
Yeah, and someone had a Sweeney comment ready the second that we started the interview, because I think that was a very big moment. I mean, that was a very big moment for the actor-musician show. In a lot of ways, I think it popularized it. Patti LuPone playing an instrument was suddenly I think these performers you would never thought of in that way just sort of changed the way that people associated with them. I do have a very, very quick question about Tommy that I've always been curious about, because the book is credited to Des and Pete. Mm-hmm. and the album, which I'm of course obsessed with, the album has some very specific lines of book. I mean, there's like a sardine, an egg, and early on there's the care to play, love, suit yourself. There's like the little interstitials that get us from piece to piece. Were those done before you hit previews on Broadway, or were those being added to sort of make the piece make more sense as you were in rehearsals? And how done was that when you hit the stage on that?
It was very, what we read on the first read through, the first day in La Jolla, was almost exactly what we did on opening night on Broadway. There were some tweaks made between La Jolla and New York. I believe My Own Eyes was written for Broadway. I don't think we had that in La Jolla. And there was a few little changes to kind of beef up Tommy and make him a little, give him a little more swagger in the latter parts of it. I think Roger Daltrey felt like Tommy was a little too wimpy in the La Jolla version. But for the most part, it was all finished. And that was because Des had gone over to London and sat with Pete, and really the two of them sat down and really decided what the story was. And it's funny, Pete said that he gave an interview when they were recording Tommy to a journalist, and the journalist asked him, so what's the story? I know this is a concept album. Shh, quiet. I know this is a concept album, but so what's the story? And so Pete told him the story of Tommy and the story of the album. And then when they went back to sequence the record, Pete had to go back to that article to see what he had said, because he couldn't remember what he told him the story was, because he was just kind of half making it up as he was going along. So in the original, you don't have to answer certain questions when you're making an album. Ken Russell's film was as much about Ken Russell as it was about The Who and about Tommy. Right. And that story, how were you going to do the baked beans, but so when they sat down to make a stage version, a Broadway version, Des, being a consummate theater practitioner, knew that you needed to answer more things for the audience. And so he sat with Pete and they really crafted it all and just handed it to us. And then our job was mostly figuring out how to make that be alive and how to make that work. And it was really interesting because that was my Broadway debut, my first experience with something like that. And yet it was a new musical. And then the next new musical I did was Titanic, which could not have been more different, could not have changed more from the first day to the last. I mean, huge. It was more like what usually happens with a musical, and numbers are cut and whole, characters disappear or come to the fore, or all the stuff that you would do out of town normally, and we had to do in town in New York. And that was fascinating to see Maury Eston and Peter Stone kind of craft that and throw big chunks of scenery and all kinds of other things out. Fun Home, I guess, was the culmination for me, where Janine and Lisa have, I would say, at least another full musical's worth of book and songs that anybody else would give their eye teeth for. And they were just so courageous with it. It might be a brilliant song, but if it wasn't the right brilliant song for that moment, and they didn't necessarily know what they were going to replace it with, but they knew that this wasn't right. And they had enough confidence in each other and themselves to know that, well, we'll just keep working until we figure it out. So those three things were such a great lesson and such a cool thing to be able to observe up close, as an actor, and to be part of helping determine what those things are eventually. It's so wild. It makes me think about Shakespeare now when I think, Bruce does this one thing and it's like it's in the text now, but that's really just because I did that this one day and he became a part of it. And Tommy does this thing, and that's because I did that in rehearsal one day. And it makes me wonder, like, how many things in Shakespeare are because Richard Burbage just was like, oh no, Bill, not going to say that. I'll just do something like this.
The quills come out. Exactly. And you scratch and add. The Fun Home being a great example. I think the way you're talking about the the artistry behind it, the creation of the music and the book, it's very so finely measured, and their casting was so phenomenal. I mean, your performance in that was so finely measured. I think that the whole show felt exactly of the weight that it should at all times. It felt like the scales were always very even on what was being shown to you, being shown to the audience, and the speed at which the audience is sort of brought into the dynamic of the characters. And having not been familiar with the graphic novel before seeing the show, a lot of it was surprising to me. Bruce's final act was a complete surprise to me, and it was wonderful to see such meaningful theater that was being measured out, which is obviously the creators having a very steady hand.
Yeah, it was. I think it gives the impression, as it should, of being inevitable. But having been a part of the process through years of its development, I can tell you it was anything but inevitable. But but that's what you aspire to have it arrive at a place where it feels like, yes, of course it had to be that, and yes, this had to happen. The fascinating thing is being there at that moment before you figure out the thing that it has to be, and do the other three things that it might have been, but turned out, not quite to be.
I want to mention Loose Cattle because I love Loose Cattle. I think it's a really great. It's a great sound. I think a lot of people are very surprised when they find out that it's also you. I think you work with such consummate musicians on it. I tried to do a little background on this and couldn't find a ton. Has there been for lack of a better phrase, has there been a COVID era version of any rehearsing or performing, or have you been waiting for the moment to be right again?
No, well, we had an album that we were all set to drop in April, because we were going to be playing at the French Quarter Festival in New Orleans, which is the big festival downtown that happens right before Jazz Fest. And we were so excited, and we had all these plans and all these tour dates and all these things, all of which, did not materialize. And at first they were thinking that French Quarter Fest would happen in October. So we thought, all right, well, we'll hold the record till October. And now that's not happening, and there's no plan for it. So now we're kind of faced with, well, as a lot of musicians are, what do you do? This is a record that you wrote for one time. Is this the time, for that record or not? And we've sort of decided that it's not really the right time for that record for us. So we're just sort of holding on to that and waiting to see, waiting for a time when we can get out and play it live. In the meantime, we've been doing a lot of sending pieces back and forth and writing stuff together. We did a cover of John Cale from Velvet Underground's Fear is a Man's Best Friend, that way, by sending pieces back and forth. And then David Barbie, who produces a lot of the Drive-By Truckers records and stuff, he mixed it for us. And Jay Gonzalez, actually the keyboard and guitar player from Drive-By Truckers, played with us on it as well. He's a friend of mine. So we put that out online and did a video, a homemade video for it. And we've got another couple things that are in process that are like that are more born of this particular moment. And I'm finding making plans is just a fool's errand right now. So we're just sort of doing things and trying to let go of the what's this for and what are we going to do with it. And we're doing it because we love playing together. We love, creating stuff together and connect. It gives us a chance to connect over screens. And, and whether they're all just released as individual singles, or whether we'll collect them in a COVID EP or album later, we'll just sort of see what the world's like later. But for the time being, we're just sort of doing it for us and for anybody who cares to listen. And I'm also going through all these archives and files and boxes and stuff in my basement in my apartment in New York, and my dad's place. And I found these recordings of my first solo album that I never actually released. And so I'm going to put that out next Friday. It's going to be for Bandcamp Friday. It'll be up at Bandcamp and iTunes and a bunch of things. It's called Hinterlands. And some of the songs actually have gone on in new versions. They've gone on to Loose Cattle Records or my other solo records. But these are like the original first versions. This is the record that never was. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have time for one more question before?
Oh yeah, I got
Great.
nothing but time.
I know that Evie was saying it was supper.
Yeah,
but
she seems
so
to have given up and is napping now.
Well, you actually mentioned what I suspected would be the answer to my quick little transition question, which was outside of the sort of performance zones of the United States, New York and LA and Chicago, what city really gets your artistic motor going? And I suspect I know the answer because we've both spoken about it and how much we love it. But for those that may not know.
Well, I have a sort of second home, or maybe my first home in New Orleans. I spent a lot of time down there. I went down there for work to do a movie called Cirque du Freak back in 2007, I think. And just fell in love with it and met the kind of people who, if you meet these people, you'll meet everybody you need to. And it's such a music town. And the band kind of changed. We began in New York, and it was mostly Kimberly Kay, who's the co-lead singer and co-band leader, and I. And we started the band with a bunch of friends of ours in New York. And over the years, because she moved down to New Orleans with her husband some years ago, and so she's been there full time, and I'm there often. Basically, when I don't have to be someplace else to work, I'm down there. So the band now is kind of more comprised of the two of us, and then Renee Coman and Doug Garrison, who are from a New Orleans band called the Iguanas, and they used to play with Alex Chilton from Big Star, and they've been around for a long time. And a fiddle player named Rurik Noonan, who is from a band called the Whiskey Gentry. So. I love playing in New Orleans. It's such a music city, and life there is just it's just different to every place else. And so that's kind of become my musical home. I got to say, I've been spending some time in Athens in the last few years, in Athens, Georgia, and because that's where Barbie is, and where Jay Gonzalez is, and I go for the Drive-By Truckers Heathens Homecoming shows every year, and I've always loved the Athens scene and Athens bands, and Vic Chestnut was a friend of mine, and I love REM and the Elephant Six, all those, all that music. So that's kind of a secondary music passion city, but yeah,
New Orleans.
New Orleans.
It's for those that I know a lot of Savannahans who have never made the jaunt over, and it's so worth it. A lot of people think that Charleston, Savannah, New Orleans all have the same sort of coastal energy, and it could not be more wrong. That each of the three has these very distinct feels.
It's fascinating because there are elements that are very similar. Like I love Savannah. I went for the first time. I was shooting Ant-Man 2 in Savannah, so I was there for a little bit, and I loved it and thought it was really wonderful. And I have wanted for some time to go back, when I'm not working, to really enjoy it more. I had some great meals there, and I had the feeling that I felt sometimes in Charleston as well, where I sort of felt, oh, this is kind of like New Orleans, only like clean and smells better. But then, well, the fact that it's not clean and it smells different is kind of what New Orleans is all about.
Right. And when you're in the mood for that, nothing feels better in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I want to honor the fact that the group thread has been lighting up through all of this. I just wanted this most recent question from Kayla. I thought it was I want to ask you quick. Are there any Shakespearean roles that you, Michael Cerveris, would like to play?
Yeah, there are a lot. And I went through a stretch of doing a lot of Shakespeare. In fact, that was what I thought my career was going to be when I was coming out of college. I would plan to be a straight dramatic actor. I didn't think I was going to do musicals particularly. I'd done summer stock as a kid, but that really wasn't my focus in school. I've always loved Measure for Measure. I've always thought Angelo's a very complicated character. I really like Richard II. He's also a really fascinating, complex king. Richard III, I've actually been asked about playing a few times, and I mean, that would be pretty awesome too. What else? I did Iago in a reading and really enjoyed that.
So did Evie.
Hey, maybe Evie feels like, or maybe that was criticism. I don't know.
I mean, the Iago, I would line up to see your Iago, but I think Angelo's got I'm always reminded. I did a reading for a concept version of it that never really that never extended, but we had Frank Wood in to read Angelo, and Frank had come in sort of with this 35 years of like this dramatic experience and a lover of Shakespeare, and I remember him being still just sort of baffled by the end of it over how many layers that writing forces you to play, whether or not you showed up to do it at for a reading or a 29-hour or a developmental. I don't know. As much as I love Iago, I feel like Angelo really is the one that people have been chasing for so long, and I think there's a way to get it right for yourself, but I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah. And actually, a character who's definitely related to Angelo, I think, that I forget about sometimes, but it is a character that I think that I have really always wanted to play, because I love those late period Shakespeare plays. Mm-hmm. I love when he's lived and written so much now and everything he's learned is now in these latter plays, and they're so dense and complicated, and there's so much going on, and there's and yet the essence of all of them in the end is this kind of benevolence and this sort of forgiveness at the end of each of those plays, like Pericles and Cymbeline. But the one I really, really love is Winter's Tale, and I would love to play Leontes sometime. He's he's an easy guy not to like, but I think. I've seen some beautiful productions of it. I played Florizel in a production in Williamstown years ago, and I think it's just a beautiful, beautiful play. So that's another one too.
Well, stand by now that I have that information. Stand by for the pitch. Stand by for the pitch of come hang out in the duplex for a couple of weeks in Savannah on a vacation, and then pop back over to New Orleans, and we'll have you come back for Winter's Tale. It's gonna be great. We're gonna make you an offer that we hope you cannot refuse. Michael, thank you for staying on much longer than I intended to keep you. I love hearing everything about your career and your pursuits, and I was really interested. I wanted to know what was happening with Loose Cattle, and I both sort of as someone who loves the sound and the music, I mourn that the moment was not right. I've had songs that I've been sort of chasing with that feel this year as well. I mourn if we don't get them in the way in which they were intended, but I look forward to what the follow-up is, or what the revisiting of those comes up for all of you. You're all such incredible musicians, and yeah.
I think it's going to be really interesting, because what I want to hear on a given day has been changing a lot over the past 6 months, and I do think, because I'll go back and listen to the record occasionally just to sort of remind myself what it's like even. And there's an aspect of it that for me, and it might not feel like this to you, or it might, hearing it for the first time yourself. But there's an aspect of, this was capturing that moment before all of this, when we didn't know that the world could hold all these things. And there can be something beautiful and meaningful about that too. And then at the same time, songs that you recorded with one, often I find that I learn months or years later what I was actually writing about at a certain time, and it wasn't necessarily what I thought I was writing about at the time, and then I'll hear it some years later or be singing it some years later and go, oh, this is what I was talking about. So I think when it feels like time to play these songs, it may not be what it was originally supposed to be, but it might be something better.
Good. And looking forward to hearing it when we get there. Michael, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm really glad to be here, and I love Savannah, so I will be there.
Good. We'll see you soon, and I look forward to seeing you in the physical world again in New York once we've moved past this. Looking forward to what that is as well.
Exactly.
So we'll see you soon.
And
Michael.
we all have some say in how soon that is, if we're smart.
And I certainly hope that we are. Yes. And please give my love to Evie. We'll see you both soon. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks, you too.
All right. My guest was Michael Cerveris. I'd also like to thank the incredible Nygel D. Robinson and JinHi Soucy Rand for joining me Fridays at 5. We've run so long because I have incredible people on who are very generous with their time and their thoughtfulness. I just want to remind you that before September 1st is your last chance to get a Savannah Repertory paver of your very own, and a dedicated paver to go in front of the theater to show our commitment to your commitment to us. Obviously, we're going to be accepting Ghostlight donations for as long as this pandemic continues to underwrite the programming that we hope to bring you in 2021. But those pavers at this price will end on September 1st. You can go to savannarep.org/ghostlight to get more information about those. I look forward to seeing you all next week. When our guests will also be incredible. Next week we will have, from the original Broadway cast of Once, a New Musical, our very own Erica Walsh will be joining us, as well as actor C.K. Allen and co-founder and orchestrator of Front Porch Improv, Brianne Halverson. We'll see you again next Friday at 5 p.m. Thanks for joining us, and have a great weekend.
The Ghostlight, a single bulb left center stage after each performance, has traditionally served as a supernatural offering to those who came before us and those we have lost, to ensure that the theater, their theater, never goes dark.
That the magic of theater continues. Theaters from Broadway to the West End, Los Angeles to Savannah may be closed for now, but their ghost lights remain lit.
Our spirits remain hungry, our responsibilities clear. We look at this as an opportunity, a chance to build on the work we've done.
A chance to embrace our theatrical roots and create new adventures.
What we do now paves the way for the years to come, for the Savannah rep of the future.
We promise that the ghost light will burn brightly until it is safe to begin again.
It is our responsibility to carry on the traditions that precede us. We are Savannah Rep.
A home for great stories and great theater. The hands of the clock will move again, and this is not the end of the story.
It's a new beginning.
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 And we'll see you soon.